Okay, I think we are live now. So, hi everybody, and welcome to Mom Champs. I am Jennifer Hughes, and I am interviewing some fellow success principles trainers about different success principles, of course, by the book by Jack Canfield. So today I'm with Whitnie Wiley. She's very wise, and she is a fellow trainer here. Um, Welcome, Whitnie. Welcome to Mom Champs.
Hi, how are you? Thanks, Jennifer. I'm pleased to be here.
Yes, thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it. It's been so fascinating to do these interviews. I keep meeting these amazing people that all have these really, interesting experiences, and they're all so wise. So thank you for being here. I
Oh, thank
appreciate
you.
that.
That's
So
part of my little tag on Twitter is wonderful, witty, and wise. So
I love that because look at your name, wonderful, witty, and wise Whitnie Wiley.
yes,
Well,
exactly.
very, very good. I love that. Now I need a tagline for my name. It's harder because it starts with J. So
we could come up with one. We won't play around with it on the live,
yeah,
but we could come up with one
we'll
for
come
you.
up with something. Okay, I'll keep you guys posted when we figure out what my name is. Somebody give me the name J Hug because my last name, is Hughes. That is
Oh, that's
Hugh.
cool.
Yeah. So that's my rapper name, they said. And I'm not a rapper, obviously. But
Well, neither am I, so I don't even pretend.
yeah, dancing though. I like that's my natural talent. Well, we should get into it though. Here, Whitnie is here talking about the principle of be willing to pay the price. Is that right?
That is right. It's the bottom line for me. And this is an old saying, so this is probably way before your time, Jennifer. But you say there's no free lunch, right? And the concept with being willing to pay the price is simply that everything has a cost to it. So whatever it is you want, you have to be willing to either, we're not talking finances necessarily, but it could be your time or your energy. And it could be something that you want, it could be something that you don't want. And you have to decide what you're willing to pay for it. So, take for instance, I think this is something that probably resonates with a lot of people. And your audience of moms, right? And in the lessons that we teach our children, when it comes to grades, we often want to get good grades or we'll want to have friends. And as a parent, we will tell our children, the path to getting the grades you want or the path to getting friends is what you're willing to give in return for doing that. So in order to get friends, you have to be a good friend. And in order to get good grades, you have to make the time to study and prepare for your exams and things like that. So
True.
it's not a difficult it's not difficult to meet the standard, but you have to make a decision on what you're willing to pay for it. And I think it starts with understanding what it is you want. And when you get clarity on what it is you want, then it becomes easier to figure out what it's going to cost to get that.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. So, why did you choose this principle?
Well, my favorite number is 6. And I wanted to say, I don't, I didn't like the number 6 principle. so, so 16 was the next principle that had a 6 in it. So, and no reason other than that. I think all the principles are awesome. I think they're definitely, when used together, and when we take them and apply them as needed, I think that's what matters. And so
Yeah.
it was sort of arbitrary, but 6 is my favorite number. So
Well, good. Well, good. So, why do you think it's important to be willing to pay the price?
there's no, without being willing to pay the price, there becomes a sense of entitlement or expectation that you should get something just because you want it. And regardless of what your philosophy about life is or where your faith lies, I happen to be a person of faith. I believe in God. And I understand that I have a part to play in my relationship with God and other people. But whether that's your philosophy or your belief system or not, the bottom line is that we're not entitled to anything and that we have to be willing to work for what we want. That the bottom line isn't whether or not you have to work for something, it is the extent to which you're willing to work for it. How far are you willing to go? What are you willing to work for?
Mhm.
I think three things have to happen. You have to be really clear on what it is you want. And you need to be very clear on your values and your priorities, because your values and priorities make the distinction between how far you're willing to go to get something. Some people are willing to break the law. You have to decide whether or not that's something you're willing to do. Your values and priorities will dictate whether or not that's how far you're willing to go. It could be, there's a discussion going on right now about college and the efficacy of college and a college degree compared to what it costs. And if there are other ways to move forward with a productive life and a career with or without a college degree, right? There is something to be said for vocations that don't have college degrees. And if you make a decision that, let's say decide you want to go to college, and the college that you want to go to costs let's say $100,000 a year. That's
Mhm.
over the course of 4 years. When you add in, room and board and all the other things to go along with it, you're talking about a $400,000 education.
Yeah.
Is it worth to you, not worth in general or to society, but is it worth it to you to make that investment for whatever it is you're deciding that you want to do? So we make these decisions daily, whether we stop and think about it or not. I think the beauty of the principle is that it gets us to stop and really think about what it is we want and what we're willing to pay, or what it is we're willing to do, invest time, energy, finances. What are we risking? Relationships, right?
Mhm.
There are all kinds of things that could be the price that you would pay, and only you can decide whether or not it's worth it for you.
That's true. That's true. And I love how you brought God into it, because I'm also Christian, and I feel like God gave us the ability to choose. And it's
Yes,
something nobody can take away from us,
right.
but something that you also, people try to disconnect this part of it, is there's a consequence for every choice that you
Absolutely.
make. And
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
trying to separate that consequence, usually it always leads to trouble, because they're not really separate. You can't really separate them. So
Right,
you have
right,
to be willing. That's why I love also that you're talking about, you have to be mindful of the choices that you're making, because there's a consequence already attached to that choice that you're
right.
making, which keeps going down the line. And it's something so important to teach kids too, is how to,
Absolutely.
you know what are you choosing? Is that really what you want? What's it going to lead to? And is this something you're willing to pay the price for?
Exactly.
Yeah, I had
I
a friend
think
who
that
was,
they go ahead. I'm
oh, I
sorry.
was just going to say, I had a friend who, he was like 12 or 14, and he was just throwing huge rocks into the lake there. And
Mm.
he picked up a really huge one. And as soon as it left his hands, he looked up. Right in the path was his brother. So he was just
Oh,
like, what have I done? I was just playing. I was just being silly. I think he thought it would be funny to get it kind of close to him so it would kind of whiz by his ear. And he just was like, that rock is so big that could kill him if it hits him in the head.
right.
He's like, what have I done? And it was already out of his hands. It had already left his hands, and whatever was going to happen was going to happen. Unfortunately, it didn't hit him, and everything's fine. But that's the kind of moment that we have sometimes. I think that, like, wait, what have I set into motion? And was this what I wanted? And that's why it comes back to clarity. Exactly. What do I actually want to see at the end? That's what I'm willing to pay the price for. So,
exactly.
Yeah, kind of
and as you mentioned, that there are consequences along the way, right? There is what you ultimately want, but there are steps you're taking along the way that lead to where you're going. And each step that you take has a choice attached to it. And there could be a consequence each and every step of the way. So taking the time to be, as you said, intentional is extremely important in this. I think we can see a little more clearly when we're trying to teach our kids this lesson, but when it applies to ourselves, we tend to have kind of a disconnect. And we're much more willing to just do what we want to do. The problem with that is that our kids are watching, right? And as much as we would like to think that they do everything we tell them to do, that they learn the lessons the way we tell them, they're actually more likely to watch us and copy what we do. And right. So if they see us making decisions, and as we are making choices, decisions, taking action, and are willing to be transparent with that when it's appropriate, right? Mm-hmm. And in language that's appropriate for whatever age they are, to share with them the process, what we're thinking, so that they can do that as well. Otherwise, all they see is that we wanted to do something, we took an action, and they think that that's the path without knowing that it's about thinking through the process.
Right. That's really important because everyone knows. That's why that saying is so popular. Do what I say, not what I do, because it doesn't work for anybody. Right. Even in a corporate scenario, like everyone can see, what the bosses say. If they say, this is what we value, and then they go ahead and not show any sort of value towards that, everyone can kind of see through that.
And you lose respect of the people who are following you, whether it's in a corporate setting or in the home. We can lose the respect of our children, that they will say, oh, she's not consistent. Oh, my mom is not consistent with, and whether they're processing it consciously or not, they are processing. And they will notice, oh, she's not consistent. She does what she wants to do, and she doesn't stop to think about what the consequences are. And so they will do it the same way. So the best thing we can do as parents is to set the example, is to lead by example, and not just with our words. Use our words to help explain the thinking and the process behind the decisions we make, but we're absolutely showing them how we want them to live their lives, and what's important in terms of our values and priorities by how we live out the things that we do.
I love that. I think that's really true. Have you also heard that saying that who you are, what is it? Who you are speaks so loudly, I can't hear what you're saying.
Yes.
I mean, kids are right on top of that from day one. Like, who you are is speaking so loudly, I can't hear a word you're saying. So that's why it's important to make sure what you're saying is in alignment with who you are, to make sure those things are in alignment, so that you're acting with integrity in your life. And that's what you're teaching your kids by that example, right?
Exactly. And again, this becomes about, it's a two-part. It's always what we're doing, and that goes along with what we're saying. It's never about the words themselves. And I didn't, and I'm not going to get into the details here, but when I raised my son as a single mom, and I remember driving one day and pulling out out of a driveway. Had been in a shopping center. I was pulling out a driveway and a car came in front and my son yelled, "Idiot." And I went, I was like, oh my God. Like, and, instantly I was like, well, where would he hear that? I was like, okay, he heard that from you. Right. And so when we take this back to the lesson of being willing to pay the price, I wasn't willing to pay the price of having him behave that way. Right. So I had to stop and think about what is the outcome that I want with my son in terms of how I'm raising him. What are the examples I'm setting? What is my vision of the end result? And then to make the choices and the decision to take the actions, particularly those that were in front of him, in order to make sure that the examples I setting were the ones that I wanted to set. I couldn't do anything about the other household. All I could do was what was happening in my house. And I wasn't willing to pay the price, right, for him to turn out a way that I wasn't, because I hadn't stopped to think about it. And if I could impress upon your audience that one thing is just to really get clear about what it is you want when you're thinking about working, or not working, right? Sometimes we have to make decisions about whether or not to work in the home or outside of the home, to go back to school, to have more children. There, millions of different decisions we make as part of our families, as a mom and part of our families. And each of those decisions has consequences to it, and it has a price or a cost that goes along with that. And just really taking the time to think it through. I went back to school when my son was 8. I went to law school. Wow. And I had to do a lot of soul searching and made the decision that I would go back to school as long as it didn't have an impact on our time together. It was an extremely difficult decision, yeah. But I found a situation that worked for me. A school, I ended up going to school at night. My ex-husband and I worked out a custody arrangement. And up until that point, we had been battling in court about custody. We finally were able to come to an agreement that allowed me this time and space I needed to go to school. And then when my son was with me, I didn't spend any time in school studying or anything, because I structured my life in such a way that allowed me to do that. But wow. I had to go through this process to figure out what it is I wanted, right? It would have been easy to go to school and send him to a babysitter, or send him, I could have sent him lots of places, grandparents or whatever. But I took the time to really think through the outcome that I wanted and to come up with a solution that allowed me to do what I wanted, which was, when my son was with me, to give him my undivided attention as much as possible. So yeah. We managed to work that out as a family. And it's possible to do it, but it starts with the clarity of what your desires are, what your desired outcome is, and the absolute clarity of your values and priorities.
That's amazing. I love that story too, because it is such a challenge for single mothers, when they're just, it's kind of sudden and all of a sudden you have to figure everything out. And so I'm not a single mother, but I did decide to go back to school when I had 4 little ones. So yeah. One of them was not in school yet, and and now I have 5. So after that, I had another one, but I ended up finishing my degree, and I did it kind of all online through the college where I had attended in the first place. They're like, you can finish up your degree from home. So I said,
that's
okay.
Awesome.
So
that's awesome.
Yeah, my daughter would, she would be like, it would be her nap time, and she would be like, I won't take a nap, and she was like preschool age. So I said, okay, it's time to cuddle up and read with me. And so she would just get a little book and And then she would usually fall asleep anyway, and I would do my homework like that. So, but yeah, I managed to finish my degree. And guess
That's
what it is?
awesome.
It's in parenting. Like
Ah,
my
that's so
bachelor's
cool.
degree is
That is so
actually
cool.
in family life with an emphasis in family life. So I basically have a bachelor's degree in parenting.
That is awesome. That
Yeah.
is awesome. And it's such a great story for you to tell. You know, I had the benefit of a son who liked to sleep late. And so I took advantage of that. I studied until he woke up,
Mhm.
right? I'm an early riser, so I could get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and study till he got up at 9 or 10 o'clock or whatever time he got up. And then we would spend our day doing whatever we were doing. You know, school, when he was in school, there was a coffee shop near his school. I would drop him off. I'd go to the coffee shop, study. When he got out of school, we'd spend the rest of the day together. So there's always a way.
That's true.
We just have to stop and think about how to make that happen. And I love that we are in a place where online learning is an option, because it does make it possible for people to be able, and moms in particular, to be able to find a way to balance the two. And ultimately, that's what we're talking about: balance or integration or harmony, work life, school
Right.
life, harmony in your life, when you're figuring out what works. You know, what am I willing to give in order to get this? And sometimes the answer is nothing, and maybe it's nothing right now, but there's a future, you know, a vision for the future that says, well, maybe I can do it in 2 years or 5 years or whatever. If it's something that you want badly enough, the desire will stay there. And when the time is right, you'll be able to figure out how to make it work
Yeah.
ultimately.
I think that's true. And I also have kind of noticed when people don't pay the price, they tend to not value the
Yeah.
thing that they have been handed.
Yes.
They don't value it. So
That's a good point. That is a good point. The other thing that is are good examples, when we think of like athletes or people who are in their entertainment industry, and the hours upon hours of time that they've practiced their craft, right?
mhm.
Whether it's bouncing basketballs or singing and or acting, and the time that they've spent perfecting their craft, their body, their instruments, that that's all part of this.
Right.
Whether or not in the end it's worth it, only the person who goes through it can decide. I can't decide for you, Jennifer, whether or not something that you decide is worth it or not. Only you can decide that.
True. True. And only you can do it for yourself too.
And right,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I
And you
can't tell
will
you
in the
my
end.
push-ups.
Exactly. And in the end, you'll appreciate it because you worked for it, right?
Absolutely.
And I think you're right. If something comes too easily, it's easy to discount it in the end, or not have the amount of gratitude for it, that putting in our blood, sweat, and tears for it. You know, it's like, I really worked for this. I worked my butt off for law school. You know,
Right.
anyone, and I still get questions to this day about how I did it. I went to school at night. I had a kid. I worked full time. And it's like,
Right.
how did you do all that? And you get really good with time management.
Right.
And I structured my life in such a way that I could maximize everything that needed to get done. It
Mhm.
wasn't easy, but I'd made a decision that that's what I needed to do in order to provide the best I could for my family. And so we figure out a way. And if I had just been given that, if someone had walked up and said, well, here's a law degree, go do be, I probably wouldn't have appreciated it as much as I did.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really true. except for your kids, which, you know, I mean, you put in your work with your kids, you know, you
Oh,
don't have to be,
absolutely.
you know, but you,
No, that was hard work too.
right. I mean, I think moms really get that because that work starts, you know, like before you even meet them. So,
Right.
so you already kind of have this attachment because you've already been working for it. And it's
Exactly.
like you're sick all the time, so you're throwing up all the time. But you're already working for it. And I think that that's what makes moms and with their, you know, have such a strong bond with their children
I think
is
so. Yeah.
that they have to work for it. They always have to be willing to pay the price. So
Absolutely. I and this is not to discount dads because I think dads are awesome, absolutely necessary and
yes,
awesome. But the way our society has historically, traditionally at least been structured is that they get to go off and work, right? And mom stays home and is raising the kids. And then he gets to come home and kind of play. And there's a different dynamic and a different um, relationship in terms of how that bond is created. And I think we see it with dads who do stay at home, that they appreciate the work that moms that stay at home do, or moms who do the mom thing and work, right? Which is,
right.
I doubly difficult. And I'm grateful that while it wasn't what I asked for, I am grateful that ultimately I had the opportunity as a single mom to have a co-parent who made it possible for me to live my best life. And we did the best we could as we were raising my son. So,
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you guys did a great job. I have a couple sisters whose co-parents are not really partnering well, you know, so it's makes it tough.
it does. And then to hear you have 5 kids, amazing. I only have the one. Amazing. So
Thank you.
kudos to you. Anyone who has more than one, it was just I'm always amazed
Yeah.
that you're balancing that. And I think it's awesome that in the midst of that you're still looking to learn and grow, and more than that, to give back, and that you're doing that with this group to help other moms on their journey of momhood. So
Well, that's so kind of you. Thank you. I feel like so many moms want to keep becoming, but they just kind of
yeah,
forget. They kind of they get lost in the kind of daily grind and you
yeah.
know the exhaustion and everything. But I think all moms are always wanting to be better than they are, which is not to say they're not already great, right? They're
No,
looking to grow.
absolutely.
Yeah.
No, they are. And I think that's a good point. It's you are good enough as the mom you are in the moment that you are, right? You're the perfect mom. My one of my my personal email address is perfectly Whitney. And it's not that I think I'm perfect, but I am perfectly who I am right
Mhm.
now in this moment, whatever I'm doing, right? Every decision, every choice I've made, every action I've taken has led me to the person I am in this moment. And it can't be any other way.
Right.
So, as a mom, you have to look at it the same way. You are where you are in this moment. You're the perfect mom for your child or children in this moment. Now, if there's something else that you want, it's okay to want that, but you don't do that and denigrate where you are in the moment. Accept that you are perfectly where you're supposed to be right now in this moment.
That's
And then you can make choices from there about how you want to impact or influence your future. And I
right.
think that's really important for especially moms. It's women. It's one of those challenges we have as women to want to be something else, but to downgrade and downplay who we are right now. And
Right.
so, and then we take that and compound it with the pressures of motherhood. And
Hmm.
we don't have to do that to ourselves. We do not have to do that to ourselves. Just accept we are where we are. And I know that as part of the success principles, you started probably with E plus R equals O. And that is that principle, right? To accept that you take full ownership and responsibility for your life the way it is. And then you make other choices
Right.
so that you can get other outcomes. And so for moms, I'm saying this to you, mom, listen to me. Trust me. Trust me. You are perfect as a mom right where you are. If there's something else that you want, make some decisions, make some choices, figure out what it is you want, weigh it with your values and priorities, and then figure out what price comes back to this lesson, what price
Right.
you're willing to pay for that to make have an impact on your future. But trust that right now you are where you are, and it's the perfect place to be.
Yes, it's where you are, and it's the perfect place for you to be. So,
Exactly.
and what you have to give is it's all you have, so it's enough. So,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
Well, I love that
Exactly.
because, and especially that you talked about, don't denigrate yourself. Don't try to break yourself down because you
Yeah.
feel like you're not enough, because you are enough, because no one else is the mother to those children, and
Exactly.
you're exactly who they need. But also, if you're kind of in that headspace where you're really just talking negatively about yourself, that's something that, are you willing to pay the price for that? Because it has a steep price for yourself
Exactly.
and your children, because that's the example they see from you, and that's what they think they need to do for themselves and for you as well, or to
That's a
you.
good example of a negative price to pay. That's a really good example is the negative self-talk. And are you willing to pay the price of continuing to do that activity?
Right.
And I would hazard to guess that if you knew that you were doing that, the answer would be no. Right.
Right.
And that becomes part of how we kind of navigate life. Um, Sleepwalking, that we're not always intentional in where we are and what we're doing. And so and which is easy to do as a mom, particularly if you're like sleep deprived and overworked and tired, it's very easy to kind of sleepwalk through it. But you've got to get intentional
Yeah.
about what you're doing so that you can make informed, awesome decisions that move you in the direction that you want to go. And then don't be afraid. I know this isn't really on this topic, but don't be afraid to ask for help, right?
Yeah.
And know that Jennifer's building a community here. Don't be afraid to ask for help. There's help out there for you, whether it's just someone to listen to you, someone to point you to tools and resources, that it's okay to ask for help.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you mentioning that, because I do want Mom Champs to be a place where other moms come in and they're like, I'm a mom champ, and that we do support each other and ask questions, and other mom champs come in and answer, and then I bring in experts like Whitnie here, and we kind of teach some principles. So I love that, because that's exactly what that I want here, is for a place for moms to support each other and feel like, I'm a mom champ. I got this. I'm doing
That's
good.
awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. We didn't have this when I was a mom, so it was not in this format, of course.
Mm-hmm.
I had opportunity to build relationships with the parents of the kids my son went to school with, but it was different. And when you feel like you're always under pressure, taking the time to physically be with people can be a challenge. And so having the option of having an online forum and community that you could go to and say, I'm having a problem with XYZ. And someone said, oh yeah, I had that same problem a couple of years ago, because the other moms that are in the community have been through things when they're further along on the journey, and that you guys could be there and support each other. I think you're building a beautiful thing, and I'm going to keep my eye on you. I don't need you as a mom, right? I'm not in that place in my life, that season in my life, but I'm going to keep my eye on you and what you're doing here, because I think it's beautiful and is absolutely needed.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And that's why I'm so passionate about it, because it is needed. When I was a young mom, I was thirsty for it. I was like looking for where is the knowledge, and I went to different courses and seminars and different things, and I feel like they're just not out there. Like, you can go to seminars about business all day long, but there's just not that many. There's not that much support for parents, I feel.
Because I think we think we're supposed to know how to do it. We're supposed to be good at it automatically, and that's not the case. Being a mom, being a parent, is the most important role. Job, if you want to call it that, but it is the most important role, right, that we have, is being a parent and raising young humans into awesome adult humans. And that we would think that we know how to do that perfectly is a little odd, given probably very few of us think that our parents did it perfectly. Right. I am much more appreciative of the job my parents did as an adult than I was when I was growing up. I certainly didn't think they were doing a good job. I didn't think they knew what they were talking about as as a teenager, a young adult. But when I became a parent, and as I've gotten older, it's like, my parents were pretty right on the ball for the most part. And we've talked about it since then, some suspect decisions, but I think for the most part that we're all just doing the best we can with what we have to work with, and that we have to cut ourselves some slack and stop expecting that, while I said you're in the perfect place and you're perfect mom, that you're not going to get everything right all the time, and that's okay. And that's where asking for help and being willing to seek help in community is really important.
Yeah, I think that's true. That reminds me of kind of just a little subheading I have for Mom Champs is, mother is our most cherished title.
I love that.
That's how I feel. So, well, do you have any final strategies or tips for moms as they're trying to live this principle or teach it to their kids?
I would just say, go back to the basics. Be clear on the outcome that you're seeking. Be clear on your values and priorities. Know how far you're willing to go. Put the boundaries. I didn't talk about boundaries, but put the boundaries in place around that are created with your values and your priorities. And don't go outside your boundaries. Don't let other people talk you into doing things that are against your values and your priorities. Don't let guilt in your head or your negative self-talk talk you into doing things that are outside your values and priorities. You stick with those, and you'll make the decisions that will ultimately work and that you'll be proud of in the end. So
yeah, I love that. And that kind of just brought up one little point about, guilt is a feeling inside your head. Like, nobody can force it there. Nobody can make you feel guilty without your consent, without your permission, So yeah, I love that, to keep in alignment with what you want most. And, that's the price. That's the price, is keeping clear on that, and then paying that price so that you can have what you want in the end, with the results with your kids and with your own life and with your goals and things like that. I love that. This has been so powerful. You are so wise. You really are.
Thank you.
Wonderful, wise,
wonderful, witty, and wise.
wonderful, witty, and wise Whitney Wiley. I love it.
Thank
Well,
you,
thank you so
Jennifer.
much.
It was my pleasure. It was a joy talking with you. Like I said, I'm going to keep my eye on you. I think you're doing an awesome service for your community, and I'm just going to keep my eye on you as you grow it, and do awesome things in the future.
Thank you so much. I love that. Okay, bye everybody. Put your thing in the comments if you loved hearing from Whitney, what your thoughts were about this principle, and what price you're willing to pay, what you're willing to pay for, what's worth it to you to pay for. So so we'll see you next time, everybody. Thank you.
Bye. Thanks,
Bye.
Jennifer.